As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture those stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. Richard Blank has served as the Chief Executive Officer for Costa Rica's call center since 2008. Richard also has the largest collection of restored American pinball machines and antique Rockola Jukeboxes in Central America, making gamification a strong part of CCC culture. Awesome. Richard, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Andrew, I love being here with you and your audience. Hustle and grind.
Absolutely.
Let's do this.
Absolutely. And, you have an interesting grind because you made a big change in your grind. So before we get into that, what I'd like to do is let's give the listeners some context behind what you do. Like what do you do? What's your ninja skill? What are you really good at? What is your path?
I'm the CEO of Costa Rica's call center. So unfortunately, I sold my soul for a golden fiddle of telesales, outsourcing, onboarding, QAing, coaching, KPIs. It's a fascinating industry. The fact that we still have a luxury trade of the art of speech. While most people prefer texting and emails, I always think the real live interpersonal communication verbally packs more of a punch.
Mm-hmm. Having come from the call center industry, I started off as a call center trainer and for some large corporations. So I understand that it's an industry that we don't think about a lot, but we have all interacted with a call center at some point. And I think it's incredibly pervasive, and it's just one of those things that we don't think about. And so I'm really interested in hearing how you got into this space. Like what were the series of events that happened to get you into call centers?
I have to go way back to Northeast Philadelphia when I graduated the proud Abington High School back in 1991. Instead of following in Grandpa, my father and brother's footsteps of Harvard Law, Columbia Business, and Washington Lee University, I went to the University of Arizona and doubled down on my favorite class, which was Spanish. I was a Spanish major. And so I wasn't a black sheep, I was just a dreamer. And I believe all of us come from certain families where they have preset careers, scholastic expectations, even who you marry. And I myself didn't want to live in that box. And so when you see dedicated practice and somebody goes above and beyond what school or work or even what's expected of you from your friends, there's a drive there. That's the sort of thing that'll get you through the deserts and out of the mountains. And if you force somebody to take smaller steps, they're going to burn out. And so it was very difficult for my family to see me investing in a second language. Where's that going to go? But I knew it was going to make me versatile. I was going to open some doors. And if I were the only one out of my friends that could speak Spanish, maybe I had an angle. So check it out. When I was 27 years old, I was given a 1 in a million opportunity to move to the land of Pura Vida, work at my friend's call center for a couple months and just teach English. Well, a couple months turned into 4 years. Hey, Andrew, I learned that business from the inside out, not C-level. So I got to learn, as you know, in call centers, retention, customer support, sales, onboarding, QA, the labor laws here, you being a trainer, me being a trainer. And you learn these specific advanced soft skills that allow you to be more diplomatic and strategic when you're conversing with people. So don't be surprised if your talk time increases, your conversions increase, and you make more money. It's only because you're more engaged on the phone. You show more active listening. There's certain times you use a certain name drop or a tie down or clarification question. Military alphabet is an excellent way to anchor with people. And my favorite, and you know this, positive escalation. Anytime you compliment that gatekeeper as you get the pass to pitch and when you're transferred, that gives you more distance than the longest bow. And so I've been able to get appointments, build beautiful pipelines, get a hero's welcome every time I call back prospecting, because all I'm doing is complimenting the people with whom are assisting me along the way. And so these things don't compromise ethics or values. It's a really, really good structure that works every time. And if you do that, you won't burn out. You make a lot of money and build a very nice business.
Interesting. So now, as far as call center, there's a lot of different ways. I used to work inbound exclusively. Is
Sure.
yours an inbound or outbound? And what is its specific industry? So is this more of a sales thing? Or is it more of customer service? Or is it, yes, all of them?
Well, Andrew, I'm 50-50, inbound and outbound, but I'll tell you 5 things I do not do: sports books, casinos, stocks, pharmacies, or sweepstakes. No matter what Hollywood says and how much they glorify coffees for closers and cold call closing, there are certain people that do earn a very, very good living retaining a client, getting an upsell, getting a referral. And the most mature is that exit interview. So you can pass it along to your owner or supervisor why you might have lost a client. And so these are the sort of things that do not have to be slinging stock. Any sort of company retains clients and prospects and try to give better service. And so maybe you and I can shatter some misconceptions. It's not like what you see. And yes, there are some glib individuals that are exceptionally clever and use words to manipulate. But then again, if you show true sincerity, there are people that will be loyal to your business for decades because they feel they're getting that bedside manner and that above and beyond. And so we both know when that individual has saved an account before, and that is very valuable to a company.
Mhm. And I think that's a really important thing to bring up is when, I used to tell the people I was trained thousands of reps, and I used to tell them all, it's like, they don't call us because they're happy. They call us because something's wrong. And I think that because of that, and most of our interactions with call centers have been negative. I had to call my bank because of an online banking issue the other day, and I really did not have the time to be calling them, did not want to be on the phone. The diplomacy comes in really handy, but I don't think we think about it more as like just a reactionary thing versus building. We need to break that stereotype of call centers instead of just being something we need or a boiler. I'm trying to remember the term from Jordan I'm trying to remember the term off the top of my head. It has, of course, completely gone out of my head. We keep thinking about it as high pressure sales, but we don't think about it as part of our strategy in keeping customers beyond using a lot of diplomacy when somebody's angry. Can you go into a little bit more about what you mean by the, using it as breaking that stereotype, what some of those stereotypes are and what the actual reality can be as far as a small business or a business owner is concerned?
Well, let me first give advice when the shrapnel's coming in and the guns are blazing. The worst thing to ever do is to say, I'm sorry, because then they'll get upset because they know you didn't do it. So then you're going to dance that dance. You try to avoid as many rabbit holes as possible. My suggestion is to repeat what people are saying, but don't hedge. Don't say, okay, great, or ah. You say, you said ABC, 1, 2, 3. Is that correct? Yes. Thank you. Repeating pisses people off, makes them frustrated. There's certain times you fall on a sword. Instead of saying, excuse me, you say, Andrew, for my clarification, was it ABC or 1, 2, 3? Thank you. So we're chiseling, we're reducing. What happens when they're doing F-bombs and cursing? Even better, as long as you're not cursing at me. But if you're cursing out loud, I'll let you do it. And then when you're done, you'll apologize to me. And then I'll do the Philly guilt and I go, yo, Andrew, are you done? Would you like to curse a little more? No, Richard, I'm okay. May we move forward? Yes, we may. So what we need to do, my friend, is readjust tones. That's all you have to do. Teach people their manners. I have a technique called the buffer boomerang technique. I'll name drop you, let you know it's a great question. Repeat the question, let you know I was paying attention. And then send you the answer and a +2. These are things you need to do every 30 seconds for checkpoints. I believe in preventative measures instead of cures. So instead of a 10-minute conversation, Andrew, it's 20, 30-second conversations that you need to land. You need to get the checkpoint, the underwater thumbs up scuba diving, because people rush their calls. You do agree with positive or negative reactions, reinforcements. Got to take a breath. See what's going on in this boxing round. What are they doing? How are they reacting to you? Are you lowering temperatures and getting closer? And so these things are very important in these soft skills. So you're asking me to tie this thing in a bow and make it cookie cutter for everybody. You got to be kidding me. Yeah. These calls zig and zag. Yeah. And so if you try to read your script, if you try to interject at the wrong time, cross-talking, interruptions, a bad call and you wonder why. And so there's certain timing, it's a 2 for 1. You take back and go in, you repeat and chisel. And you tell Billy with the coffee breath yelling at you to keep making phone calls, your supervisor, to calm down. because I'm looking to be engaged right now. I'm looking to be in the moment so I can capture that one or two things on that call that will completely diffuse the situation. It's usually the dog in the background. You're yelling about one thing, but I'm going to say, Andrew, because I can't hear you. I love dogs. Hey, what breed is it? What's its name? And how old is your puppy? So then passive aggressively, you cool out, you put the dog outside, you circle back again. We talk about the dog for a minute. And then my goodness gracious, let's just walk that ball into the end zone. You just need to not get that target paralysis and forget about the distractions. While everything's going around you, you're staying consistent. You got to keep that tone consistent of confidence and empathy. And you match their rate of speech and their pitch in order to give them tie downs. And use that pausing, use that silence to your advantage, because it just doesn't seem like you're stretching or rushing. And so if you do these things and practice these sort of soft skills and listen to yourself in these phone calls and properly grade yourself in a neutral way without emotion, then you'd be able to make those proper corrections and make this industry much better. So people will give you that 1 in a million compliment and say, yo, Andrew, I've spoken to 10 people today at the bank. You were the only one that held my hand and walked with me. You should be getting that on every call, my friend, regardless of the outcome.
Absolutely. And I think it's an art form that's lost. You're right. In a call center industry, there are so many KPIs around us, and we're really held to because a lot of people don't realize in call centers and how they work in the background, we are called to call to call to call to call to call to call to call. I used to take anywhere between 150 and 200 calls a day. And so it was one of those things where, I know, right? I was the trainer. I had other things to do.
Come on, lightweight.
It was just me, But one of the things, first of all, I haven't really said this to a whole lot of people, but I do have a personal track record out of literally thousands and thousands of calls that I've handled. I have had 2 that I haven't been able to de-escalate, and of them were rip-roaring drunk. So the other ones I've been, just kind of my personal track record. But I know what you're saying as far as that de-escalation. What happens is when we're speaking to somebody on the phone, it's a headless voice. There's no connection. And that's at least one thing I found, that you're not a person to them. I like what you said about the dog, because now that brings in a personal connection. Now you're not just a faceless voice that this person has to talk to and they don't want to. Now you have something else that has a point of connection. Now you can move forward with them there. So I like how you brought that up.
It's being normal and it's being real. There's nothing better than when they break down that fourth wall in Hollywood and talk to the audience and stuff. I love that. They're real. And so, I don't know, maybe it's just a way to get your jive in there. And so how about this? I talk about romantic deaths, because if you get hung up on it, if you can do a company name spike, if you can give a positive escalation and introduce yourself properly, that's a great 30 seconds. At least you're jumping clouds. But if you're going into it expecting the kill, it's not going to work. I mean, you're going to burn out, or you're going to get bitter, or you're going to lose your groove. And so there are certain ways, if you can land an intro really, really well, then I think the rest of the call becomes 10 times easier for you. And I've mentioned before the positive escalation, and you just mentioned about Judy, and you get transferred to Johnny. That's great. I start off by saying Judy's great. And then instead of saying, who's this? I'm good, thanks. Why are you calling? They go, I know she's great. Hey, who is this? It's like mystery shopping. I'm giving gifts. And then I'll say Richard Blank. And then they'll say, well, who's Richard Blank? Good, I got you a second time. You're not angry at me. So now that we've diffused it and you've separated me from the 1,000 people that are trying to get in touch with you, Andrew, then maybe we can start normal. Seriously, don't prejudge me on these black and blue calls that you've been getting before. They didn't have manners. They didn't do their due diligence. They didn't look at your LinkedIn profile or website. They were not prepared to talk with you. And so, as I say, make these calls and emails and voicemails custom made. And if you do, at least you're going to capture their attention so they'll listen to it. How about this? Richard, why are we leaving voicemails? That's a good point, Andrew. Tell you what, how many texts do you get a day? 1,000? How many emails do you get a day? 500? How many voicemails you get a day? 5. Yeah. So I'm gonna leave you a great voicemail. At least make the day. Tell you how great Judy is. So maybe you'll call me back. And all I know is this: when I do call your company back, and Judy does pick up the phone, she'll say, Richard, I've been here for 10 years. You're the only person who's ever complimenting me on the phone to Andrew. I'm going to put you right through. Oh, thank you. It works. It won't compromise your ethics, and it's going to make somebody's day. So separate yourself from other people. Pay that compliment. Pay it forward.
And I guess also you're speaking to humans, engage as a human, engage with somebody that, exactly. And that human touch, and that's one of the things I used to see with a lot of, reps, especially my reps that were underperforming. We'll just put it that way. They like you said, they're just there to get the job done. That's it. There's no connection, no empathy, no nothing. Spend a little extra time, and that's why I have my track record. The only 2 I couldn't de-escalate. And that was due to outside influences that neither one of us were going to be able to handle. But it was interesting, that human connection. And I think that's not something we think about as far as call centers are concerned, is that human connection. We think you're talking to a robot who happens to be alive.
Well, that's because they have bad habits. Can I give you the greatest example? And this is when I know someone's not coachable. They're really not selective in their vocabulary. They'll say, how may I help you? I said may, not can. I know, Andrew, but I don't like the word help. Why? It provokes an ego defense. Help. Why don't we go into the thesaurus, look at similes? I suggest assist, guide, and my favorite, the double score, lend a hand, because you get the image streaming, you get the visual. And so anytime you can make your vocabulary more descriptive with adjectives and colorful, you get more points with Richard. It's you engage. And so no helping. Andrew, I may assist you. Come on, buddy, I'm here to lend a hand. Let's do these things. And I mentioned about excuse me for my clarification. These, as I say, you can power up words. You can adjust them. It's the same message in a different delivery. And when I see these things and hear these things, it's bad habits. I don't know where you got it from, but it's not working. And so we need to make these sort of adjustments. And don't kid yourself. Their talk, do you know the metrics? The talk time increases. The conversion ratio increases. Why? Because you're not saying help. We're good, thanks. Okay. No, we changed that. And so as long as Danielson can work with Miyagi, they can balance on the beach and kick Johnny in the face. That's what we're looking to do.
Absolutely. So let's get into a little bit about call centers and entrepreneurs, because I don't think this is something that people naturally correlate with each other. I mean, we think as smaller businesses that call centers aren't for us. And I mean, I can tell you, a good friend of mine and a client of mine has a call center. And so I've seen it work. Tell us a little bit more about how an entrepreneur can use all of these things that you've said, this amazing wisdom that you've dropped on us. How can they integrate that into their processes?
Yeah, because they're overextended. This is for sales, appointment setting, lead generation, customer support, back office support, non-voice support. It's just virtual. I mean, if you really need somebody in the brick and mortar for high fives and to work on site, I understand that. But I also believe in merit. Anybody that can earn your account and do the calls better than my agents, they should get the account. But if someone is half my price, but through certain soft skills and offsetting, those prices because of what we're capable of doing, then it does make sense to work with us. But, I tell you, there's a certain companies that would prefer just to have us set appointments for them, real estate, insurance, law firms, travel agencies, you name it. And also it's not plug and play. I've seen scripts that are very, let's just say, not as smooth as they could be, or they've seen too much Hollywood and just expect people with visas and credit cards at the ready. You have to prepare with rebuttals, and you have to give yourself a certain script that flows, where it's not too complicated, and there are certain turn-taking areas. You should have email and voicemail templates available. You should have training manuals to show you what a CRM system looks like. These are onboarding things to save you some time, and also to see if people are capable during certain stages. My suggestion as well is film your training. Why? So you don't have to do it 1,000 times. And someone where English is their second language, or they pace differently, can pause it and review it at their convenience and leisure. and then give them little 5th grade quizzes at the end of every section just to make sure that Johnny's paying attention. But to me, those are the things I'm paying you to do. When you're on site, if you're capable of standing up in front of people and role playing, so you're doing the triple public speaking, role playing in front of people, using your English, using your illustrators to be more animated, man, you're quadruple gunning it. These are the sort of skills you need for self-confidence and self-reliance, because you might have the desire to make these phone calls, but where is your structure? Who is teaching you how to balance and how to have that endurance and how to receive certain feedback and coaching so you can make those sort of adjustments? It's not for the faint of heart, but then again, it's not that complicated. I always believed that if you show the same sort of manners that you did with your grandparents, and you're very selective of when you listen, because I tell you what, I could have the greatest lobster in the world, man, you want steak. There are so many times by you talking will answer 7 of my questions. And stop asking close-ended questions, yes or no's. I don't want to know if you like ice cream. Andrew, what type of ice cream do you like? You're going to say chocolate, triple scoops with Jimmy's on top. You just answered 5 of my questions easy. We like to stack questions, saves time. You talk, your pace. It's so easy. Just pay attention. Yeah. And if you do this, then just ride your waves, man, and you'll have great 7-minute phone calls.
Mm-hmm. I remember teaching an entire course on open-ended questions and how to ask them properly to gather information. It's, we don't, you're absolutely dead on with that. There's so much information I can get and so much I can hear between the lines with an open-ended question. Sometimes people say something and they mean something completely different.
Hey, it's your dance. I'm dancing with you. But I tell you what, no one really gets into this industry. I saw what my friend was doing, but I wasn't C-level, but I did learn empathy goes a long way. And when you are with the proletariat and you hear the chit chat, that's what you always hear. The companies where the guy started from the bottom or was a waiter before owning the restaurant, they get it. And so by me being in the trenches for 4 years, man, this is my wheelhouse. It's easy for me. I can bite the apple when juggling. And so when I was 35 years old, I was getting old and time was a ticking. And it was about impulse control and maturity that it was actually the right time for me to begin a company, because I could fulfill contracts and be that guy. And so it was a little bit later in life. I wasn't ready in my 20s. I was still kind of finding myself. But I knew this. I had 90% of this business. The remaining part was the CTOs, the CFOs, my attorneys, my accountants, and the human resources director, because I'm not going to school for that. There's no way. And so I could do 90%, but I needed the specialist on their home court advantage to assist me. So don't try to do everything. You'll get yourself thin. You might do something wrong. And so there are certain times you need to bring in people, promote them, delegate, and pay them to ensure that you do proper business. And so, yeah, man, did I cut a corner? No, I had people with that experience to help me. All I was doing was the sales, the onboarding, and closing the deals. And it's a match made in heaven. I don't need to know how to play the guitar, but I'm still in the band. And that's very important for me.
I've had that conversation with a lot of entrepreneurs where they say, and I'm one of those folks as well, where it's, I want a limited functional knowledge of everything that I do in my company or everything that goes on in my company, but I'm really good at specific things. I'm really bad at specific things. So one of my personal least favorite things to do is bookkeeping. I have a business degree. I know how to do it. I know double entry. I know everything, T-charts and everything. I hate it. I won't do it. And I think there comes a point when you have to really understand.
I'd rather go to the dentist. Oh, man. Yeah.
Very true. Very, very true. So we're getting towards the end of the podcast, and I do have one question that I ask everyone, because I want to leave every person not only with the stories that they hear in this podcast, I also want to leave them with something they can take away. And as somebody who has an entire line item in my budget just for Amazon books specifically, what is one book or podcast that really has had a major impact in your life?
That's interesting. I guess the longest book I ever read was a 1938 book by Harvey Allen, which was called Anthony Adverse. It was 1,234 pages. A friend of mine gave it to me in Spain. where am I going with all this? Well, it was a romance. He was in love with Angela. Guy kind of traveled the world and was, a poet in a sense of just living life in different countries, and was always trying to discover oneself. And I read that when I was 21 years old. And when you read 1,234 pages, you live a man's life. And so I kind of felt like I walked in this individual's shoes in the 18th century. But why was that book important to me? Because I finished it, damn it. All right, and I'm still quoting it 30 years later, but it was, it was one of those things where they made a movie from it, and my grandma and I could talk about it. But I tell you what, with the self-helps and these salesmen and stuff, I get more inspiration by my friends and certain strangers, or when I see somebody doing something exceptionally kind, when the cameras are off and when it's not expected. Because when you slap on a suit and a book cover and television shows and fame, God bless them. And I hope they're assisting people, but it's not for everybody. Everybody really does find that one experience in life which is so unique, nobody else can understand it or experience it. It's yours, it's special. Yeah. And it's almost that premonition, or you get the chills, or you see the movies where you get that. As I say, there might have been some people that moved abroad, studied Spanish, started a business, but I don't know if someone moved from Northeast Philly, went to Arizona, moved to Costa Rica and started a call center. I've yet to meet someone like myself doing this. So where did that magic dust come from? Well, it was like Hansel and Gretel. There were treats along the way, from my dedicated Spanish teacher and principal that supported me, to my teachers in college, to the internship at Telemundo, right? And so all the Latinos, where I'm not Latino, but said, go Richard, go. Kiddo, you got something going. And that was more than enough wind in my sails to make an argument to my family at 18 years old, at 21 years old, and at 27 years old, that I'm following the footsteps of great-grandparents were nomads. We moved to the United States at the turn of the 20th. I'm just doing the same thing. And why would you ever take the spark out of somebody when you see their head up high and that's all they talk about and dream about? Makes them want to live. Why would you take that away? Because you are a negative Nancy, Debbie Downer, or do you love me so much you don't want me to get sick? But if you never let me on that roller coaster, how am I ever gonna live? And I understand the balance. And sometimes, Andrew, you need to be selfish in this life and make certain decisions that are for your own preservation and your own good. Because if you disappoint that, where you can't look at yourself in the mirror and be proud of yourself, it's a very long life. And that's a very terrible forced march that you would put yourself on. And so my suggestion for you and your amazing audience is, A, not to be hard on yourself. Secondly, stop comparing yourself to others. Come on now. And at the end of the day, regardless of the outcome, just be proud of your efforts that day, even if it moves an inch, even if it doesn't move an inch and you go back 4 steps. That's what boxers do. You can nail me a couple times, but I'm coming back. And that's the sort of thing that gives you the vigor. And so if you think I batted 1,000, you're crazy. I just was able to bail more water out of my boat than that was coming in. And that's what happens with entrepreneurs. You got to have that long distance thinking and do the long game. And if you have that in you, then plan accordingly. And then get on your podcast of the hustle and grind and tell your story, and everyone's going to love it. And Andrew, my man, I can't thank you enough. I had the best time hanging out. I can't believe we're talking about call centers today. We should be talking about my pinball machines, man. You told me.
I was going to say,
stuff.
you have
call centers. Everyone hates call centers.
You have something that I only dream to have, and then that is, tell everyone what you have, because I think it's just awesome.
You forget the business that I built. I am a collector of classic pinball machines. Remember Ricky Schroeder and Silver Spoons? I wanted that. And so I tell you what, when I first started making money and I had the space, I just went treasure hunting down here. All these arcades are going out of business. I had to drive a couple miles, a couple hours to go get this stuff. But You're right, my man. Those electromechanical machines with the old wheels and the bells and the painted play fields and the marquees. They are the most beautiful works of art. If you can get them and have them in your den, you'll be the most popular person in the neighborhood. And they are super, super treasures. And if you have the right mechanic and electrical engineers, and you can get the parts at certain stores, it is so worth preserving these machines. I currently have 13. It's the hill I'm willing to die on with my wife. And we'll just kind of leave it at that. But my oldest machine is a 1970 Bally's Camelot. Newest machine is a 94 Last Action Hero Arnold Schwarzenegger Data East. I got everything in between, but what a great pastime. Go buy one and fix one up and put one in your home.
Something that I don't think anyone else knows about me. I know exactly what you're talking about with the Bally Camelot. That's one of the ones I want. Some of the early ones, man. Oh, those.
And I got a 71 expressway right next to it. I pass them in the morning. I go, hello, ladies.
I'm sure you do.
Oh, they're so beautiful.
They really are. They've been a passion of mine for years. And I just love the way that they're so intricate. There's so much engineering and so much creativity that goes into creating them. Not just like the artwork on the glass or anything like that. It's the mechanics that these were done before microcomputers, and how they made it work. They're just fascinating.
And maintaining them's fine, just with the contacts and looking at wires and just making sure that the fuses are okay. If you do that and you don't move them a lot and let people bang them, don't bang my machine. They last a long time.
Absolutely. Richard, it has been a blast today. Thank you so much for dropping this much wisdom. I really, really appreciate you being on the show today.
I'm bald. I'm supposed to be smart. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. All right. You have a great day.
Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Richard, check out the link in the description.